Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. This is the show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist in private practice, and I'm also the parent of what was once an ADHD child and is now an ADHD adult. And I've been doing this for 40, just right at 40 years. Hey, Rianne. Anyway, and I have pretty much, I think, seen almost everything you can see. I've done children, all ages, teenagers, adults, and even some people who are of retirement age who are starting to wonder why they had these problems their whole life. But anyway, it's at this stage of my career, I am pretty much doing assessments because, there's a huge need for it, and I just don't have the time now to do as much therapy as I used to do. But I have done a lot of therapy. Anyway, today, there are all kinds of treatments proposed for ADHD over the years. We keep coming back to medications because they're the most efficient, don't require any special training, and by and large are pretty effective, okay? It seems like more recently we've had a lot of objections to medication, but the one thing we can't really object to is there is research proof that it works. But today I wanted to talk about a couple of other treatment approaches, and they are approaches I have used. I have used on patients and even a couple of family members, for that matter. But I'm talking about neurofeedback, and I'm talking about cognitive retraining. Now, as far as I'm concerned, neurofeedback is the more woo-woo of that group. Okay, neurofeedback is basically like an EEG. You are hooking electrodes all around. Thank God now they have some that they don't have to do the individual electrodes. Back in my day, we had to take the little electrode, take the sticky patch off of it, put a little gel, something that helped it conduct, and then paste it to the patient's scalp. And in spite of what you tell patients, a lot of women showed up with heavy makeup, and so then you got to take a little, you got to wipe off the makeup, and that sometimes well, let's just say some people didn't like the way they looked leaving the office. But anyway, and so then what you're doing with computer analysis is you're giving the patient a signal, and theoretically they can learn how to increase their beta waves and decrease delta, theta, and even alpha. But alpha is kind of a relaxed, calm state, which is not too bad, but beta is your real alert state, and that's the one you really are looking for. Delta and theta are basically how are you managing to sit up kind of states of being. There are a number of problems with neurofeedback. First of all, it costs a lot of money. Insurance does not cover this at all. And for it to be even close to effective, you need like close to 50 sessions typically. And that can run you right around $5,000. Let's just say the research is highly variable. It's, I can't even remember when it first came out. I think it was maybe 20 years ago. And then there were some serious questions about the initial research that perhaps some nice academic type psychologist looking to pad his resume had also padded his statistics to make the treatment look like it was more effective than it in fact was. I don't know. I just know that to this day, research results are variable, okay? Which for a lot of things would be the kiss of death. I mean, that would just mean nobody's ever going to do it. But, it's a new gizmo and a new gadget, and that attracts some both providers as well as some people who are looking for new treatments. Excuse me. The fact that it doesn't seem to be very effective, or is variably effective, shall we say, doesn't seem to cause people to have much in the way of caution about using it. I mean, it certainly is not going to hurt you, but it's not necessarily 100% sure that it, well, nothing's 100% sure, but the probabilities of it actually helping you, maybe not so much. We don't know. Just leave it at that. And but it's been that way for decades. So, part of the problem probably is that to set up a research design using this stuff, it'd be very difficult. It's not enough to just give them some kind of a dummy program where they're watching, butterflies and daisies in the field. There actually has to be some kind of feedback that looks like it's changing. And that would be very tricky to create, I would think. Okay, that's neurofeedback. Another one that is also computerized is called cognitive retraining. Computerized cognitive retraining is the whole mouthful. And that's basically, if you want to put it in simple terms, it's video games that are designed to improve attention, memory, speed of processing, working memory, all those sorts of things. Basically, you are in front of a computer screen and you are essentially playing a game. Okay, it's a very specific game, and it's designed specifically to work with your cognitive abilities. Okay, there are all kinds of questions about this stuff. Again, it is terrifically hard to research just because the placebo group, it would take a lot to develop something that looks real but doesn't really do anything. That would be a bigger trick than developing the original programs. There are a number of these programs around, and the research is variable. Now, this is one treatment modality that I have had some considerable experience with. I sort of like it. I can hang on to the concepts better than I can neurofeedback. Electrical waves in my brain, or controlling them, changing them, just seems a little bit, I don't know, woo-woo, I guess. But the cognitive retraining, I'm also a neuropsychologist, and basically you've been using computerized cognitive retraining since the 1980s to treat brain injuries and strokes, concussions, that sort of thing. And there are a few treatment programs that have been proven to be pretty effective with brain injuries. Doesn't say much about their ability to improve attention and concentration in a person with ADHD. The research is just not there. I have one particular woman that I have been seeing for a few years, and interesting thing was she'd been treated with ADHD since she was a kid, in spite of some really crummy evaluations. But basically, when she was a kid, we didn't have real great evaluations. But anyway, so she was treated forever, Then she did a cognitive retraining program in my office, and did quite well. And then for some reason, I can't remember exactly why, either she wanted it or one of her doctors wanted it, we did a reevaluation. And she came out looking totally clean. Like, there's no ADHD here. And then things, I've forgotten what happened, but a fair amount of time passed. And so right after she'd finished her cognitive retraining, her evaluation was normal. And then about a year later, she's having more and more, I think she'd had a baby or something anyway, and she was having difficulties again. Reevaluated her, and this time she looked classic ADHD. Now, I don't know exactly how to, what to give credit, or if there is credit to be given. It seems like after the cognitive retraining initially, at least for a period of time, her symptoms had significantly been reduced and she was doing pretty well. Now then the other part of that, though, is why didn't it last? What happened that it didn't last? Massive changes in the body because of giving birth? I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that. But let's just say I don't do a lot of that anymore. For one thing, it's very time consuming. It's time consuming for the provider, and it's time consuming for the patient. And I just don't have any time to do that sort of thing anymore. I have somebody on my staff who was real helpful doing that, but it wasn't, shall we say, her favorite thing to do. And she had a lot of other things that were but more important to the practice that she did. So we, hello there, Jackie Samuel. Thank you for joining. Anyway, and we basically decided that we weren't exactly sure it was real helpful. We didn't want to take people's money if we weren't going to provide them with a service that was at least research proven to be effective, and so we basically quit doing that. So right now I don't offer either neurofeedback or computerized cognitive retraining in my office for ADHD, that is. And usually, the way things have changed over the years, you don't have to come to somebody's office to do cognitive retraining. With the cloud and all that, you can basically do it from the comfort of your home, as they say. There are a couple of programs out there that I routinely recommend. Excuse me, but that's for people with more brain injury, mild neurocognitive disorder kinds of things than ADHD. Right now, there's nothing with either cognitive retraining or neurofeedback that I recommend to my ADHD patients. There's another thing out there, which you may have heard of, called binaural beats. And that's a method of, I guess we could call it treatment, that basically what it does is you have to be wearing headphones, and it delivers a different frequency to each ear. And the theory is that it somehow causes your brain waves to adjust, and you can use it to decrease stress, get ready to go to sleep, or to improve alertness. That's what they're saying. As most of these things, the research is a little bit behind the times on that. People are using it I mean, I suppose the good thing about this is you don't need expensive professional equipment to do it. Okay, neurofeedback, you got to have some pretty expensive gear, and for cognitive retraining, mostly what you need is a big enough monitor and an accurate enough monitor that people can pick up sometimes the stimulus changes are small, so you need a bigger monitor and a clearer monitor to be able to pick that up. But anyway, so those are the kind of, what do we call those? Digital sort of treatments, I suppose, that are out there in the world now. Both neurofeedback and computerized cognitive retraining. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Because neurofeedback is expensive because you have to go to the provider's office and you have to get hooked up, and it's, like I said, around somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000 for a full course of treatment. Cognitive retraining is relatively cheap. One of the best known programs is a thing called Brain HQ, BRAIN and capital H, capital Q, and that was that's only about like $100 a year for access. You get an access code, and then you do your when you access the system. The first day you're in there, the first session you're in there is establishing a baseline, for the different cognitive functions, and then thereafter, it makes it a little more difficult if you're doing well in a cognitive area. It makes it a little easier if you're not doing well. Basically, the software automatically adjusts to you, so a provider doesn't have to do a whole heck of a lot with that, and I frequently recommend that, mostly to my brain injury kinds of patients, not to my ADHDers. But anyway, that is a quick and dirty kind of look at all these things. So, basically the medications are proven. This stuff is not proven. The digital stuff is way more expensive, and the outcomes are questionable still. I mean, they need to be researched, and like I told you, there are some huge problems to doing that kind of research. Well, hello there, Deborah. Thank you for joining us. Anyway, the deal you're going to have when you have an ADHD child, and I know, people get kind of rigid and desperate and all that kind of stuff, but understand the treatments for ADHD have been around for 100 years anyway. It's, and people don't grow horns or die or all that other stuff, and it's if they've got ADHD, so the deal is you make sure you get a good evaluation so you know for sure what you're dealing with, and then go treat it, get it done. And I know nobody wants to give their kid anything that they shouldn't give them, although I don't know how Cocoa Puffs keep being sold, but you want to do what's safe for your child. I understand that totally, and I wouldn't tell you to do something that is unsafe. Okay, by general medical rules and regs, okay, do not, there are alarmists out there in the world, and God knows with the political system, the way it's going right now, there's no shortage of alarmists. It's become a national cult, I think, but there's scientific research, there's scientific method that tells us what's true and what's not true. You want to be messing around with a lot of sort of case study research, which, one guy one time had a good response from, who knows, whale blubber. that doesn't mean whale blubber is a great treatment for ADHD. Just doesn't. Okay, that is me. I am Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. We're the show trying to make the world safe for ADHD. Because remember, no compliant thinker ever changed the world, but people who think outside the box routinely change the world. And one of those could be your kid, okay? He could come up, or she could come up with a solution to one of the world's most difficult problems because they don't think like everybody else. And that's not a bad thing, okay? And so your job as a parent is to create an environment that encourages that kind of thinking. And understand they will never be neurotypical. They can try as hard as they want, but they're always going to have this little extra way of thinking about stuff. And they're going to see things in different ways, and that's fine. That is okay. That is even desirable. We need those kind of thinkers in our society. Okay, and I keep teasing, but it's coming. Okay, we are getting ready to do a launch. As I expected, the technology is not quite as simple as everybody says it is, but we're getting there. So I will be making announcements in the not too distant future. Okay, catch you next time. My website is terrygingrasphd.com. You can leave notes, questions, things you'd like me to talk about. Please do. And we will catch you next time. Thank you.